Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is episode 6 of book review, travel books. Anyway, today's book is Solomon Time. Nice and close. Solomon Time by Will Randell. It's got a nice image on the front. And as you can imagine, this was about a man, Will Randell, the author, who lived in Britain, had never been outside of Europe in his entire life, and not really on a whim, but sort of without much forenotice or much really thought put into it, decided to take a developmental position in the Solomon Islands, previously belonging to a commander who had died, who was British, and who he vaguely knew. So he decided to take over the commander's position, and his job was to start up a business that would bring income into this small community in the Solomon Islands. Anyway, the book does sort of culminate in how he set up this business, which turned out to be a chicken farm, chicken production farm, along with a deep fried chicken fast food restaurant. But really what most of the book is just this guy's cultural experience in this small Solomon Island community, village, and just how it differed from the West. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Solomon Islands are in the South Pacific and have sort of a traditional way of life, heavily based around subsistence fishing, subsistence agriculture, and just very minimal development from Western standards. Anyway, I did enjoy this book quite a bit. I feel like the conflicts in the book were very, and also just the way the book was written, both the way the conflicts were presented and just kind of the flow of the book gave an impression similar to what the Solomon Islands were, in that it just kind of flowed through. Certainly there were issues and certainly there was drama, but that it wasn't overemphasized, or that time would essentially wipe away whatever issues were involved. For example, there is a relative in this village that tries to swindle the village at some point, but rather than culminate in some huge thing, just kind of ends up being him leaving the village and everyone continuing along happily. Kind of some of the interesting aspects about it were some of the interesting aspects of the book were I'm gonna have to edit that. Some of the interesting aspects of the book were just kind of the pidgin English of the Solomon Islands. The Solomons have multiple different languages among all of the tribes and villages, but all sort of unified by pidgin English, which isn't really English, but is sort of like pidgin English, Creole English. Some of the other interesting aspects, just how little emphasis is put on scheduling and timing in the Solomon Islands. The most dramatic example of the book being a man did not know if he was 35 or 45, which is a pretty huge difference. But it's also just little things like, a shipment that was supposed to arrive at the village didn't arrive until 3 days afterwards, which created problems after they were supposed to arrive, which created problems in feeding the chickens in their initial stage. That is a large part of the book, is how he developed this small farm and how the islanders took to it. Once again, just in conclusion, I did enjoy this book quite a bit. It's kind of hard to really find arching themes, just because the guys... Well, I should say one more thing. I clearly have not thought this out very well, but one more thing was sort of had to do with Western intervention in the Solomon Islands, and just how sort of uneven it was. Where some organizations, or some of even the things brought by the West, like democracy or the elimination of the practice of headhunting, for example, would be considered progress, and even the Solomon Islanders would consider it progress. But at the same time, how there was a lot of swindling done by Westerners that would come in, or Westerners would just use their position of power in an abusive way. Their monetary advantage or whatever, or just the lack of knowledge that the Solomon Islanders might have about things like fishing grounds, protection of fishing grounds, or protection of land rights, things like that. Okay, now I am going to get to the conclusion. I really feel I did like this book, Solomon Time. But it's kind of hard to find any overarching theme in it, just because the mission was narrowly focused. Even though it wasn't always focused, I guess you'd say, it kind of meandered quite a bit. His ultimate goal was just to create something that could be a source of income for the islanders, not create some drastic sweeping change in the Solomon Islands as a whole, or make some commentary on Solomon Islander life versus the West, and make some change along that aspect. And also just sort of, once again, the kind of slow flow, though not entertaining, but just kind of observational, casual flow to life and flow to the book. They really made it an enjoyable read, without really trying to overstep its bounds. And I really feel that was the biggest advantage of the book, was Will Randell just kind of recorded what went on in the village and made some commentary, but wasn't like always trying to make some commentary about the advantage of tribalism, or the advantage of native peoples over the West. Kind of illustrated examples of how that happened, but didn't really try to be didactic and overemphasizing the point. Well, anyway, I feel like I am overemphasizing my point at this point. So if you like sort of a slow, casual book, but one that's definitely entertaining and adds insight into the Solomon way, just as observation, not really through preconceived notions, I guess you'd say, I would recommend this book, Solomon Time by Will Randell. All right, thanks again, you guys. I'll see you in another episode.